Hello, good day. This is our 13th meetup for the OCWG. We have no agenda for today, but we are going to discuss some ongoing topics. So let's start.
All right, great. We need to decide on a way to use extensible JSON.
I will, just 1 minute, I will share my screen with TLDraw. If I can find the link. Yes, there it is. Let's see.
And we could talk about some of the built-in relations that we want to have, especially groups. And I forgot what we decided on ports.
Let's see, we can start with that maybe to refresh that. I'm so used to my own interface for my tool. I always have to get used to TLDraw with dragging and stuff. Let's see.
So a port is a visual thing, so it's a visual node. Okay. And the thing where we have the port on is also a visual thing. And how are the two connected? We give the big node an extension, the OCWG ports extension, and then we have an array of port IDs. Yeah. So we are not using relations for this.
No, I don't think so.
It's okay. Yeah. Okay. So the other recurring structural thing that visual maps are using is probably groups, where you group things, and if they are grouped, they move together. If you delete the group, the items in the group are deleted. There is no style inheritance happening, just a visual grouping.
Start.
And we talked on the relations side about sets. And now the question is how should groups be modeled in Open Canvas, and do sets play a role in that or not?
Aren't sets groups as well? Or do we want them split? Look, I think in the, let's see, something here about it. I'll just open the specs that we had already, just to look what we have.
I think we have drafted a little bit about sets, but not about groups.
What's the difference between a group and a set?
Okay, a set is something we defined already. That is on the structural layer, on the relations layer. So we have the visual nodes and we have the relations. And in the relations, we looked what are the most common relations, and we came up with sets. Obviously, sets of stuff is the most, or one of the fundamental primitives for relations. So even if they are not visually represented, we want items to be able to form sets. That's certainly useful.
Yeah.
Now, if we have a group in a visual space, we have some expectations how that group behaves. Namely, that if we, so the group is like a visual thing you can move around, but it has no representation on its own. It's only formed by its members. So that seems to be more specific than a set.
Yeah, and the set is in what layer?
Set is,
Where do you? Yes.
set is just a logical grouping of nodes.
Box.
Nodes or relations. We allowed both. So a group is somehow more specific, maybe.
And, is a group defined in a set so that you point from a group to a set so that you know
We could also go the other way around. We say we have a set, and now we open the Open Canvas file, and we see that these three items are grouped in a set. So then we can infer already, maybe they should always move together. Can there be a set of visual nodes where the visual nodes should not move together?
I think there's quite a lot of those cases actually. I think sets are just like there's such a general purpose structure that you can use them for a bunch of different things. Like one would just be an undirected edge, for example, if you wanted to make that explicit, encoding that as a set could make sense. Or like yeah, I think you can have collections of things where the collections are not groups in the way that we expect. It feels like a group comes with its own like norms around what affordances that gives you in the actual interface itself, whereas sets are more like a purely structural and semantic thing.
I have the same feeling, yes. So if groups and sets are not the same thing, what is a group? Is a group rather a visual node, or is it rather a relation? Visual nodes have content they display. Visual nodes have usually a position. A group seems to have neither of them because it's only grouping the other nodes. So a group is maybe more a relation as well. What do you think?
Feels
yeah,
hard to say.
yeah. I was looking at what happens in TLDraw itself. This is now a group in TLDraw.
And would we say this group has a position?
In their implementation, it does. The coordinates become local to the group.
Which is an awesome feature because it allows recursion.
It does seem like in principle the position of a group is one that's derived from its members.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, both options are possible. Yeah, the semantics. If you delete a group, I would expect the children to be deleted as well. If you delete a set, I would expect the children to remain.
That makes sense.
Is there anything more you can do with a group? I mean, I'm aware in PowerPoint where you create groups of groups, and that's fine. So a group may not contain just visual nodes, but also other groups, whatever they are.
Yeah, you can copy a group.
Yeah, and then do you also create copies of the children? Yeah, right. You usually do.
Yeah. And when you copy a set, I think, yeah, can you copy a set? Or is it just pointing to the set from a node again, if you want to reuse the set?
If I copy a set, it should be a different set, but pointing to the same members.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So we said visual nodes and relations, they are not as binary as they seem in the beginning, and we can decide on a case-by-case basis what feels better, so we can have a show of hands on whether a group is rather a visual node or rather a relation. And it seems to be pretty relation-like.
Yeah.
To me. So it's yeah. Hi, Jess.
Hi.
You arrived just at the right moment to talk about your feelings, whether you feel a group is more a visual node or it's more a relation.
I was listening to the last 10 minutes, and I think it still
Perfect.
seems more relation-like for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Orion, does that fit for you as well?
Yeah, I think that fits.
Okay. So, yeah, I think we've resolved the basic group stuff then. Cool. Then maybe we can talk about extensible JSON. So the model we had last time was property bags, and they state their type as one of the properties as schema key. An alternative could maybe first put this into the tier drawer. Yeah, I think this is what we had in the other tier drawer examples last time.
Yeah, like here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in another meeting, we decided we could merge actually schema and schema version into one.
Yeah. Yeah, similar to how like a JSON file with all the different dependencies. Yeah.
So, and an alternative to these property bags with a schema key could be prefixed properties. So inspired from what JSON linked data does, like instead of having the OCWG port extension, we would have a prefix. And then we would have one object at the top explaining, mapping the prefixes to schemas.
Which has that? JSON schema? JSON
JSON LD has, yeah.
And GLTF has that? Does that use that as well?
I was gonna say, how does GLTF do it?
GLTF does it similar. they use minus signs to do the prefixes. JSON LD uses dots. And in GLTF, the mapping is known to the standard. And in JSON LD, the mapping is stated in the file. And to be fully open, putting the mapping in the file, I mean, as we would also do with the add schema key, putting the mapping in the file seems to be nice for our use case. So yeah, it would just result in a more compact JSON format. Instead of new object, schema is so-and-so, ports array is this, end of property bag, we could just have directly property on the level above called, I don't know, OCWG minus ports dot ports, and then have the array there.
Like so.
So yeah, not with an add. And so now if we want to, so we are now inside our visual node. So we have our standard properties. And in addition, we now put some extensions in the visual node. And now we need a property name for the extension with a unique prefix. We could just call it ports. And then we have at the root of our document,
You mean here, or this not
yeah.
correct, I think?
And in order to make it a prefix property, maybe we needed to call it ports.ports so that it's
But is this an array or
and we don't need the wrapper, the OCWG/ports. Maybe I can where do I find the link to that deal draw?
I will post it in the chats.
In which chat?
From Zoom.
Okay.
If I can find the chat. Because now I'm sharing
Interesting.
screen.
Okay, I'm looking at how JSON LD would do this.
Yeah, JSON LD has always these add context mappings, and that's where they use one JSON object to have the prefix mapping to a longer string. Yeah, that's a reasonable example.
Yeah, I had a Claude generate it for me.
I put the link in the Discord.
Discord. Okay.
Yeah, you do these. So it's like it's still okay. I see. Yeah, each individual asset or like attribute is prefixed.
Yeah.
And then you go to the top to understand where the schema comes from. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a different kind of indirection, but it can be more compact because you don't need this wrapper. You just have your ports array just here.
Interesting. Huh. Okay.
And yeah, in order to make that work, there must be at the root. So we have, this was in the nodes array, and somewhere we had the add context where ports would have to be defined to, something like this maybe. And this of course must be Canvas protocol, right? Something like this. And it's, yeah, there's one difference to be aware of.
Mhm.
Last time we said if we want to type a node, we just add a property back and put an add schema inside, and that implicitly gives this
Mhm.
surrounding node that type.
Mhm.
Here, it's harder to type something because I can only use these extension if I actually state something. So in order to just type
Right.
something and not say anything else about it besides the type, another mechanism would be needed.
Mm. Yeah, I like aesthetically, I like our approach better. To your point, it doesn't match with Jason, our original approach where we're talking about property types with property bags that have schema specified for the entire bag.
So which one would you prefer? The prefix properties or the property bags?
Property bags make more feel good to me looking at the JSON LD piece.
Yeah.
Property bags are just a little bit more verbose. That's
They
all.
are, but the reason I prefer it, just to be specific, is it groups together logically related um, uh, properties. Whereas the JSON LD, like you could reorder the JSON
Yeah,
however you want,
yeah,
and they are sort of grouped together if you do it an alphabetical sort because you have the
yeah,
prefixes naturally cluster alphabetically, but having them exist in, and I imagine too as like writing a parser for this of like I want to just kind of parse bag by bag and look at the schema for each one of the bags, and then
yeah.
that feels like a cleaner implementation rather than any property could be referring to any schema, and I have to dereference every single property back to a schema. Um,
I
I feel
agree. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a spectrum of very terse, nice, human readable JSON versus making it easy to implement a parser. And yeah, maybe here we go more for robust implementations. That it's fine for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think we're talking about functionally, right, that they're equivalent. You could convert between a flattened
Yeah.
JSON LD style and the property bag style. It's just how do you reference the one question that we were circling around the property bags is what happens when you have a property bag that has the same variable that two property bags have the same variable name, then what do you do in that case? And I think that can't happen in the JSON LD case because every property is prefixed with the schema name. Maybe we prefix with the schema name under the hood. In our property bag version is like we apply a prefix which causes all the variables to not collide. But in some cases you kind of want, I think you want a collision. Like it's by design. It works more like inheritance where you like want a child
I
class to be able to override a parent.
I don't understand where you see a collision. Let's say I have a visual node with two property bags, and
Yeah.
each of them has a property A inside, but it's different property bags, so it's
Well,
twice.
let's use a specific example of like having a generic arrow and a TL draw arrow, right? And maybe the TL draw arrow has a different it would be most interesting if it had a different type for like the same property name. So like you could have maybe there's a from and to endpoint that are in X and Y, and maybe in TL draw. It's TL draw 3D. They just came out with TL draw 3D. I don't know if you guys know about it. Just kidding. And they have an X, Y, and Z. for the from and to. And so they want to have this, TL draw 3D arrow that can work in X, Y, and Z, and they want to override the from property. I don't know. And so does that even, maybe you make the point at that point of like, it doesn't inherit from arrow at that point. It's so different.
Yeah, but if a 3D arrow is so different from a normal arrow, and we have a visual node that has both property bags,
mhm.
then what is what
I'll need to,
what is
let
a
me think
what is
more
a
about it. I
reasonable
thought I had a
what is a
case.
reasonable semantics? Like, so the
Right.
tool is expected to say this is at the same time a 2D arrow and a 3D arrow. That doesn't make sense.
I'll have to think more about it. I had a case that I thought made sense, and now it's eluding me. Yeah, let me think about it.
And maybe it does make sense. Let's put it this way. So we found a file and it has a
Mhm.
2D arrow and a 3D arrow, and it's the same arrow. So
Mhm.
it's if the implementation does understand the 3D arrow property bag,
Mhm.
it will likely understand to ignore the 2D property bag and just not
Right.
care about it. If it's
Yes.
really smart, it will change the 3D arrow at runtime and then reserialize the 3D and the 2D part in a matching way. So it will still fit. But it's all up to the poor application to understand all this typing mess.
It is. Yes.
And
Agreed.
and if we have an application not knowing about the 3D extension, well, it will just ignore it, change
Yeah.
the 2D arrow, change the coordinates, write back the 3D arrow as it was with different coordinates. And the next reader will be slightly confused, but that's the best we can do.
No, I think you're right. In the sense that your description of the expected behavior matches my expectations
Okay.
of what I would expect to happen as well. In which case, like you mentioned, there's probably no conflict there. You're pulling from one bag or the other based on
Yeah.
whether you understand that 3D arrow. And yeah, if you're really smart, you're updating the underlying 2D arrow at the same time, like both of those things separately. So yeah, makes sense.
Will there
So
be a
yeah,
relation between the 3D arrow schema and the 2D arrow schema or others? So that you know that the 3D schema has more priority than the 2D schema? So that the tool knows which
yeah, in the
properties.
best case, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was
We
the idea, that like schemas would be able to extend one another so that you could say like this 3D arrow it's like a 2D arrow with more to it kind of thing. But we haven't covered extension. We haven't talked about extension yet in a while.
Just write it down.
do we still, I mean, regarding JSON schema, we found out that we have no realistic way to validate a whole file. But for each extension property bag, we could still describe its schema by a true classic JSON schema,
Yes.
just to have a clear format specification.
Yeah.
And
And we could write some tooling that extracts each property bag from the overall file and parses it using JSON schemas tooling. So while we
yeah,
can't parse the whole thing at one go with the
yeah,
JSON schema tooling, we can write the higher level thing that takes it and like performs the JSON schema parsing on each individual section. And we
exactly.
might even be able to get one of the JSON schema plugins, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it works within an editor that has support for like the JSON schema language server. Yeah.
And what about this schema inheritance? I'm not aware how that is a concept in JSON schema or not.
I don't think it is. It was one that we talked about early on, that Orion and I talked about early on, but I don't think we've talked about it in a little bit. It's also not, I think we've kind of moved past the need for it at this point. In the use cases that we've considered.
Yeah, but Michael just brought up an example where it would make sense if we have a 3D arrow and a 2D arrow, and the tooling should get some hint which one is like the preferred one to use if both can be understood. It's not really inheritance, but
yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think in that case it's still going to be up to the implementing canvas to decide. Well, not just to decide what's the support for 2D or 3D arrows that particular canvas has, and it will.
That's a good resolution. Yeah, just let the app decide.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've been trying to get through my head is we're talking about a container format, and so anything that has to do with behavior changes to the underlying format. What happens if this behavior happens? All we can ever do is say, here's what we recommend, or here's what we would expect to happen, because we're not going to be doing we're not going to be writing any of the code that does the transformation, right? The implementing canvases on the other end will be writing that code. And we can't validate it or expect it. We can only validate the data at rest, so to speak. So we can make suggestions. To your point, Max, we absolutely should suggest when there's a set, like you copied this down earlier, if you delete a set, we expect the children will remain. If you delete a group, we expect the children will get deleted as well. But that is merely a convention, not something we can actually
we cannot enforce it, but it's also the point of an extension of an interchange format to say, if you have a set that has these semantics, please use this set mapping. If you have a group with these semantics, please use the group mapping, because that's the only way that tools interoperate.
Yep, and I think that's what we're trying. That's what I'm trying to say with the arrow example as well, is we can say if you support 3D arrows, then make the update to the 3D arrow object. And if there's a 2D arrow there, then and you can update it as well. It's on you as the implementing canvas to update both of them accordingly, to decide how they should both be updated.
And yeah, and what you just said about 3D and 2D arrows, where would we say this? Because it's, yeah, I think maybe in the documentation of the two extensions.
Yeah. No, I think we would describe it in a more general form when we talk about schema extension generally. We would say, like, in any node, because this is about what sort of.
Yeah, you're right.
It's about the robustness of the tool that is implementing OCWG. It's like, do they support this feature or not? If they don't support this feature, then like, don't delete this property bag. That's another thing we need to say, right? It's like maintain the property bag and like pass it on along unchanged. But if you understand that, it's up to you to update the appropriate schemas, even when they're potentially conflicting, and to decide how best to update them. So, yeah. And I think we can make the point that some schemas might have a more primitive representation, that even if you have a more full-featured version, you could update the more primitive, almost like a fallback.
So we are not going to be able to we are not going to support extending other schemas.
At this point, I'm not thinking, but
yeah, maybe we don't formally need to.
Yeah, I can imagine it's not necessary.
Plus, we'll awaken the ghost of Christmas past of like inheritance versus composition arguments and all of that.
A different term.
Oh, you went on mute right after you said a different term, Orion.
Yeah. I just ran into someone, had to say a thing. But like precedence is a word that comes to mind here, kind of what we're really talking about now, where we're not really talking about schema extension, like taking a schema and adding to it or changing it. But like if you have two competing things, whether we should encode that one has a higher precedence than another, like whether one should be used as a fallback and so on.
That's a good point.
But I do think I am inclined to say that we don't need to do that. And this, I also wanted to raise a point that maybe we can chat about in a sec, a kind of a slightly meta topic, which is thinking about like buy-in from people building Canvas tools, and also I mean, I know you and me, Jess, we're gonna have a work session soon. Hopefully, we'll go and build some interop, and that'll be useful. I think it would also be great to think about, because it feels like the draft is really like we're starting to get down to like a lot of the details, which obviously is very important. So it feels like it could be a good time to bring in some people that have like gone through the full process of building specs and having them implemented, and see at this stage if we're like running into any spec writing pitfalls. So I want to raise those two things, but especially the buy-in one. I think it would be interesting to think about like how we want to do that as we're getting close to having a spec that we can go and implement in tools. How do we actually strategically approach that? That doesn't have to be right now, though. I just wanted to chuck those in as topic.
No, I've definitely been thinking about it relative to the whole point of interop is to get two tools talking to each other. At least two tools. If you don't have at least two tools talking to each other, then what the heck are you doing? It's just another different way to save the file to disk. Like, way to go. Yeah, I think the way to go about this that I've been thinking about strategically is kind of the way that we've been thinking about it all along, which is making it as easy as possible for a couple of canvases to adopt this, and then spending time with them to do the work. So whatever that means in the TL draw world, the Excala draw world, Michael's canvas. Obviously, Michael, you're doing a lot of work there, the work there yourself. But yeah, just the Collison install or the go one by one and sit down with them and help them implement it piece is one way. The other one would be providing, like, writing our own translation tools from certain formats. So I think the most obvious one is Obsidian's JSON canvas. So writing a JSON canvas to OCWG and an OCWG to JSON canvas. Obviously, this will be extremely lossy in the OCWG to JSON canvas direction. But I think providing people what we can in that area can help people start to adopt, individual users start to adopt it. I feel like the Obsidian community in particular, they're making a lot of canvases, and giving them the ability to get their stuff out of Obsidian's canvas into anything else will be potentially very useful to them. So writing the OCWG to TL draw and OCWG to Excala draw, and then so they're two of the most used ones. There actually, by the way, is an Excala draw plugin inside Obsidian, which is another kind of interesting piece there. But giving them the ability to go from JSON canvas into one of those other canvases, I think provides a use case that's not just for a canvas author, but should get us some real people putting real canvases through the pipeline and see what happens.
Maybe related to that is actually the community of people doing Obsidian plugins that where like they want more abilities in the canvas, and trying to help them actually have a format that they can target so that they can interoperate.
That's a great point. And a couple of those folks have asked I'm in the Obsidian Discord, and I check in on the plugin creator channels every now and then, and just kind of read through to get the sense of what people are working on, what the problems that are coming up, and that kind of stuff is. And that JSON Canvas and actually OCWG has come up several times in the Obsidian Discord in that context. And basically, from my sense right now is that it's not a high priority thing for the Obsidian team. They have several other like big rocks that they're trying to tackle right now, and they're a very small and focused team. And yeah, but there is interest, at least some mild interest, among the Obsidian user community and the theme developers, or the plugin developers, not theme developers.
So. One thing that comes to my mind is we said in the beginning we want the format to be visual and structurally. You listed some nice candidates for very visual tools in order to have some exchange. Obsidian Canvas, Kali.TLDraw. And then we have Michael's code flow, which is a nice mix of semantic information, visual information. But it would be great to add an even more non-visual tool to explore the structural mapping stuff more. For example, Obsidian, seen as a wiki, the linking structure itself could be exported into an OCWG canvas without visual information.
That's really interesting. Yeah. The
I
other
just
one that comes
noticed
to mind
my phone's on 1%, so if I disappear, that's why.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. No problem. The other one that comes to mind that was involved a little bit early on is XState.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
That one's getting a lot of usage from React developers and stuff like that, as a really nice tool, stately. That's what I was thinking of, stately, not XState. Yeah, so that one is a more pure, yeah, it's built on XState. Purely conceptual, sorry, not visual. And it'd be interesting to, like, if you could take an XState diagram and then annotate it in a visual tool, take it back into XState and then bring it back in. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that would work.
Yeah, to have a layout engine for OCWG files.
What do you mean, Max?
Yeah, you take a file that has no positions for the visual nodes and no size, and then compute the layout so that other tools can show it. That would be cool.
Auto layout.
Yeah, I'm working on graph layouting tools, so I can tell you so far it's a hard problem.
Yeah.
I only remember it from working with what's the open source tool that for graph generation?
GraphViz.
GraphViz
and Dot. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot of work with GraphViz and a grad student because my research was on graph-based representations of procedural content. So like using procedural content generation algorithms, but using graph algorithms to grow the procedural content and then mapping that to a visual structure later. So you could control the procedural content's you could control its conceptual integrity before rendering it out to a visual representation. It's kind of an interesting, yeah. This was my early 20s.
Probably some nice screenshots.
Yeah, I have some procedurally laid out residential floor plans and maps for RPGs and other content like that, where you actually want to maintain the conceptual integrity and ensure that it like abides by certain rules. And so graphs are great for that. And then you would go have from there a step that takes it from the graph representation to a visual representation.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool. Great question, Orion. I know you had to drop. Looks like he had to drop off when he was at 1%. Yeah, I am. My November projects are wrapping up in the next 2 weeks, and so I should have some availability in December to actually put in some serious work on OCWG, which I'm pretty excited about. And as Orion mentioned, we're a mere hour and 45-minute plane ride away from each other now, and so I think we try to get together sometime in December. You guys are invited, but you're a little bit further away in terms of a flight.
Yeah, but I wonder actually, Max, where are you located?
In Germany.
Yeah, I'm in the Netherlands.
Yeah, Karlsruhe,
But,
southern Germany.
But what you say, Carsten?
Karlsruhe, that's a southern Germany.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of the Netherlands, so that's still. I think by plane it's probably comparable to.
I was just gonna say that sounds about an hour and 45, 2 hours apart. If I remember my European geography and flight times.
Let's see.
Amsterdam.
We're in neighboring countries already, so it can't be so far.
Karlsruhe?
Yeah.
It's 5-hour drive by car for me. I'm in the center of the Netherlands near Utrecht.
Uh-huh.
That's center.
Oh yeah, so you're closer down to Munich, Max? München?
Yeah, closer. It depends on what your granularity is.
I've been mostly from Frankfurt down to Munich and then down into Austria and Switzerland is kind of where I've been. But yeah. I was in Berlin earlier this year, but I don't know the geography around Berlin very well.
Okay, Berlin is far, Frankfurt and Munich are closer. We have some nice things to decide next time, like the name. What actually are we talking about? Is it an OCWG canvas? Is it an open canvas? What's the name? Then what's the root URL for all these namespaces? Is it like Canvas protocol or? And how do we handle technically this recursion stuff? If one open canvas embeds another open canvas, then what do we need to represent there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a
I
very
feel like
nice can of worms.
Previous two are pretty straightforward. I mean, I think open canvas is what we've been sort of tinkering around with. But yeah, whether it has a space there, open canvas, or if it's open canvas or that kind of stuff, preferred capitalization, like we should come up with that stuff. OCWG is a nice abbreviation, but we're not shipping the working group.
Yeah.
we're shipping the canvas.
Exactly.
So that's cool. And then yeah, we already have canvasprotocol.org, and so like that feels like a solid domain name that we can use. And we may need to subdomain it, maybe. And we can use a subdomain off of Canvas Protocol.
Yeah. Or just a subdirectory for the namespaces for the schemas there.
Yeah, it could be. Would be that. And yeah, but yeah, in terms of recursion, that'll be an interesting one to I think that'll be pretty straightforward given our asset handling options. I think we actually talked about this when we were talking about
yeah.
So that's cool. Thank you guys for taking notes. I apologize I was late. Band practice ran late. So
no worries. What do you play?
Play electric and acoustic guitar.
Yeah, of course.
That's one of my electrics on the wall, and then but this
cool.
is the one that I was rushing back from band practice today. So
cool.
Yeah, man. Fun stuff. Great. Yeah, it feels like we're really closing in here and have narrowed down a lot of the details, and now it's just let's knock this out. And yeah, Michael, super appreciate you continuing to stay on top of the logistics. Very, very helpful.
Oh, no worries. It's It's a small job with the help of ChatGPT. That really helps.
It really, really does help.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh man, there's so much of my busy work that's been taken over by LLMs that it's so joyful to not have to do that busy work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I want to see if we can install that Fireflies plugin.
yeah,
It's probably
yeah.
something you should do, I think, but I don't know if it's free. If it's free, only if it's free, of course. But
Yeah, let me check and make sure if it's free, and I'm
yeah,
open to installing it, and much faster to do that than have to run through the pipeline of going through Whisper and all that kind of stuff. So very cool. All right, guys.
yeah.
Enjoy the rest.
This call was recorded, but I don't know how to stop it actually.
Oh, it's like
Or Ryan did.
yeah, yeah. It's already request host to record cloud. You can go to the little record thing and say stop. But I'll send you a link right after this.
Yeah.
Cool. Actually, I'm assuming you recorded to the cloud. Is that
Yeah, I think so.
okay? Cool. Great. Well, I'll get an email.
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
See you
Have a
next
nice day.
time.
See you next time. Bye bye. Bye.